Welcome to Paradise Killer. Let's get this game started.
Paradise Killer.
I love the sound effects, I love the voice, it really preps you for an experience, but we've got some more prepping to do because this game is bonkers. So the game has to let you know ahead of time with some text crawls to make sure you're sort of understanding that where you're landing is really bizarre. So in this case, we've got these first three lines. Welcome, investigator. You will soon enter a paradise where fact and truth are not the same. Explore paradise in your own way and find your own truth. These lines tell us a lot about what we're going to be doing here. Welcome, investigator tells us who we are. We are a bright, big, bold, capital letters investigator. And it also tells us where we're going to be, paradise with a capital P. But most importantly, it tells us fact and truth are not the same. Find your own truth. So from a strict perspective, that's just garbage. This game actually has a very concrete truth. Everything in this game makes sense. There's nothing foggy or indistinct or random. Everything progresses perfectly fine. It's like a proper detective story. But the setting is super bizarre. It's going to be very hard to focus on the crime and the various pieces of evidence when the setting is this bizarre, because the pieces of evidence are almost telling you about the world rather than the crime. So it's important that everybody know that it's going to be quite a while before they feel comfortable in this world. And as you wander around the island in whichever way you please, you're going to eventually start to get used to the world. That's going to give you direction. You are going to find your own truth. Of course, the reality is that the truth is the same for everybody, but you're going to find your own way to the truth. Here's our opening text crawl to prep us for a strange world. Normally, opening text crawls are very, very clear. They explain things in a very rational way to try and make sure that you know the history of whatever's going on. Technically speaking, that's also what this game is doing, but the explanation is almost indecipherable. You have to read it like 2 or 3 times to figure out what's going on. So let me read it for you. The Syndicate created the first Paradise Island to worship their dead alien gods. Guided by leader Montserrat, the Syndicate attempted to resurrect the gods by forcing citizens into psychic worship rituals. However, the worship invites demonic corruption from beyond the stars. The islands always fail. The islands die, and a new Paradise Island is born. The cycle repeats. Island Sequence 13. Lady Love dies. The Syndicate's lead investigator is deceived by the god Damned Harmony. She endangered paradise. Her sentence is eternal exile. The island could not be saved. Demonic corruption began to infect the fabric of paradise. The island died. The citizen slaughter ritual took place. Another Paradise Island failed. The cycle always repeats. Lady Love dies, watched from exile in the Idlelands as each island flourished and died. Each iteration got closer to perfection. Demonic corruption events decreased. Island 24 was almost perfect, until Henry Division, a lowly citizen, got too close to the gods. He allowed demons to flood the island. The citizens were once again slaughtered. The council began their meditation to end 24 and birth perfect 25. But before they could complete it, Paradise was killed. So this text crawl is basically the same as any plot-related text crawl you'd find. Like, if you watch Star Wars, they have the same kind of text crawl. But this text crawl is about a really bizarre world with really bizarre ideas. And it's prepping us to really just kind of get dropped in that world and not really know what's going on. That's kind of the point. But that said, everything in this text crawl makes perfect sense. And you can even look back on this and see quite clearly all of the evidence of what exactly happens in the late game. Like the idea that the fabric of the island got corrupted, and the idea that perfect 25, well, if something perfect is coming and some crime happens just before it arrives, maybe look for whoever said that it was going to be perfect in the first place. And of course, they do mention the citizen slaughter ritual, which, if you're reading this and paying careful attention, you might think, oh, the demons invaded and slaughtered all the citizens. That would be too straightforward. Then they have another bit of text, the Way of Blood bar on the 25th island sequence. If you've been paying attention, we're on the 24th island sequence, so this is in the future. I'm not a big fan of these blood bar ritual things, or blood bar scenes. It is kind of nice to be able to have some drunkards looking back on what happened and kind of muttering to themselves about it. And there are some clues as to who these people are and what's actually going on, but I just don't think it's necessary. The world doesn't need drunkards talking about it because it's so bizarre in the first place. So the idea that each island defines how the whiskey tastes is actually not a plot point, but a major underlying beat. So it's a fun little reference there. They're just explaining that we will have been called down to fix this crime, and we will succeed in figuring out what's going on. They're from the future, and they can tell us that.
Another day in exile.
So there is a little bit of voice acting, but it's partial. So you're going to be hearing a lot of Lady Love Dies' voice coming out of my head, which is going to be disconcerting considering that she has a very light British accent, and I don't. Island 24 is supposed to be ending. Why am I still here?
I have a bad feeling about this.
This is a free roam 3D game. It's very lo-fi, but because it's free roam in 3D, it's very immersive. I really enjoy this kind of game quite a bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about exactly how this game is constructed. But first, let's talk about your first impressions. You are in this really tacky abode, and you can tell right away that this is kind of a fantasy land. The roof isn't actually a roof. It's, if it ever rains, the rain's coming right in. The walls aren't actually walls, and you're surrounded by plants and a really tacky bed and some tacky posters, so you know right away that there's something weird going on here. You're playing someone who's tacky, but not tacky in like a human sense. They're tacky in like an immortal, godlike sense. They have buildings so tacky that they literally would not function as buildings. There's a little whisper. Hear that? Now I've turned down all the volume because it can be very, very distracting when you're trying to talk over it, and I have to apologize for that because the sounds in this game are an important part of it. The music adds to the game, but also you hear giggling and sound effects to tell you things are nearby. Those are going to be a little bit harder to hear when I'm LPing it. So sorry about that. I can't really do much about it. Wistful photo obtained. The outside of the Paradise Psycho unit before it was disbanded. The last photo of me was taken back on Island 13. So we are Lady Love Dies. That's our name. And we used to be the island's primary investigator, and what we investigated was demonic corruption, demonic possession. And that's what they're talking about when they say the psycho ward. They're not talking about people with mental illnesses, they're talking about demonic possession. Except that they're talking about people with mental illnesses, but that's a thematic thing, and we'll talk about that much later. Still, the basic idea is that we were someone very important, and since then, they have been operating without someone preventing demonic invasions. Days since you were exiled. 3 million. Yeah, that seems, like a lot. They're trying to let you know that you're not a person. I mean, you are technically an individual, but you're not a human. You don't live so much as exist. I also like this little chunk in the D. I think that's really nice. Here's a picture of us. One of the things I really love about this game is that, as you might have seen, our actual portrait is kind of chunky and dumpy, but all the paintings of us and all the people who reference us, they really show us as like a tall, lithe, impressive person. It's like, no, we're really just kind of a chunky lady dressed in fun colors. So if you're listening, you can hear this guy giggling. He's going to be a recurring character. And you can tell he's close because he'll giggle. And that's important because when he's close, he's often on top of a roof or behind a trash can. This guy is a demon, and I'm not the one doing the censorship here. The censoring is built into the game. Even when the game is set to full adult content mode, this guy is still censored. And I think that's a fun choice. As you can tell, he's in 2D, while the rest of the game is in 3D. And so that is an interesting situation. It's sort of like Doom or Daggerfall, one of those old games. I think it was a great choice. It keeps the game real cheap to produce. They don't have to do any 3D modeling for the characters. They don't have to animate them. Obviously, if there were millions of characters, that might get a little bit annoying to watch, but there's only like 10 in the entire game, so it's not that big a deal. This particular character is a little bit unusual because he's a demon, but all of the characters are very unusual, and I think it's fun to, you meet a demon and you're like, okay, well, this is definitely the exception, and then like nearly all of the characters are not any less demonic than a demon. Lady Love Dies.
Who are you?
The first person you've spoken to in 3 million days. Can you taste it in the air? Something's wrong. This island was supposed to end. You're damn right it is. While you were exiled up here, all kinds of shit happened down on the island. The messed up kind. Real messed up. All kinds of messed up. You used to be the Syndicate's investigator, right? They're talking about you down there. They need the investigation freak. So he's really hammering home our role in this game, who we are, and what's going on. He's trying to bring the strangeness of the world and the text crawl into some kind of reality for us. He's explaining, you're an investigator. You need to go down there and figure out what's up. All of the chaotic randomness and weirdity, including me, because I am in fact a demon. Look at that guy. All that stuff is secondary. You need to focus on the investigation, which isn't really true, but it's really the balance between the two that needs to work. Time to get back in the saddle, get out of the Idlelands, and get back to work. Exile is over.
Why?
The name is Shin Uth Jagath. You can call me Shinji. So she's a little bit concerned about a demon in the Idlelands because demons are supposed to be the bad guys. If there's one thing we picked up from the text crawl, it's that demons are the bad guys. And in this case, in this world, they mean very literal demons. I'm just here to hang. I got no horse in this race. Someone's made a move against the Syndicate. People are betting on the wrong horses. I like a good bit of murder. It's a good time. The best time. I'm just here to watch the results play out. You got some solving to do, some investigating, some looking real hard, some good thinking. Time to weave some truth, Lady Love Dies. Anyways, I gotta bounce. Go get your laptop. You're gonna need it. See you on the island. I guess I have to find my laptop. He must mean Starlight. Every investigator needs an assistant. Starlight is up ahead. Nothing strange about this door. Yeah, perfectly normal place. Nothing strange about it at all. So the game heavily features all sorts of pseudo-satanic imagery, and it's just kind of mixed in with your daily life. And they're really hammering home that this game is not about ordinary people, but it is about how people behave when this sort of thing is ordinary. It's a game where people behave normally in extraordinarily strange situations, and that's part of the charm of the game. We can talk about, the thematic resonance and stuff like that, but I just want you to know that this game is full of weird crap on purpose. Now, most psychedelic games, when they try and do this, they feel like they're trying too hard. But that's the thing about this game. It doesn't feel like it's trying too hard most of the time, because it's got this totally solid foundation, a bedrock. A well-read book about an ex-gangster that decided to become a master of grilled chicken skewers. It's got a bedrock of totally solid everything. Like there's no ooh mysterious thing happening to you as you walk around or any cheats like that. Everything is rock solid. But it's rock solid with the most bizarre world building. And that's a good way to do it, because as the world gets stranger and stranger and stranger, you need that rock solid footing in order to understand it. Whereas in most games with psychedelic worlds, they're like, oh, everything is so strange, ooh, and you can't understand it. It's like, why bother? Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the literal world building, the actual architecture. This was made in Unreal, and it's using world space textures, which means that all of these things that are built here, these are just built out of geometry brushes. And that makes it very fast and easy to develop these kinds of settings. They can just build whatever sort of buildings they want. They don't need to use modular building kits. They do sometimes, but they don't generally need to use modular building kits, because it's so fast and easy to just build things using geometry brushes. For example, this is the default circle geometry brush. I actually used it in my recent How to Light Things Like Control video, so you can go ahead and take a look at that if you want. And you can see what I mean by world space textures. So if we come over here to this edge, you can see how this kind of just goes gabloomp. See, like that? That's a clear sign of a world space texture. They probably could have made a texture do that if they were assigning it in like Blender or something. But for the most part, that's not what you do. You just use world space coordinates. It's not necessarily always true. I'm not quite sure exactly what the rules are. They've got some offsets here that wouldn't normally happen if they were just using a world space texture. But I think that might be an error in their grid coordinate calculations. It's hard to say whether they're using just a world space material on un-UV wrapped objects, or whether they manually unwrapped them and did a projection from camera. Either way, what they get is very, very easy to build scenery. They don't have to do any painting or anything like that. It's just hammer it out and make it work. Very, very fast. Good choice. Coffee doesn't taste the same if you're not working. Oh boy, tell me about it. That little ringtone? You're gonna hear a lot of that. It's gonna become a lasting memory. When you think about this game, you're gonna think about that ringtone. But you know what? It has been 20 minutes, so we're gonna stop. We'll get to the Nightmare Computer tomorrow.